Welcome back to the channel. My name is Adam Smith, and inside this GameFound preview series, I'm very excited to continue with gameplay for Vanea Guardians of the Eldertree, published by Forgotten Tales. It is landing on GameFound in the near future. The exact date and the campaign page link can be found in the pinned comment and video description. Now, for those in the solo community that have not checked out my prototype unboxing or the how to set up video, I recommend you do, as it'll give you more information around this one. I'll put a link in the top right hand corner with both of those. The unboxing gives you an up close look at all the components that came as part of the prototype. They are subject to change and not in their final form, but you'll get to see everything in case it doesn't happen to show up during gameplay beginning in this video. And also, the how to set up video will show you how this game gets set up to the table and all the steps involved. There were a couple of changes I made from that video, some mentioned in the FYI section of the how to setup, and some I'm going to talk about right now. One correction from the setup video is that there's no exploration token on the revealed tile, which had one right here. You'll also notice this tile is different. There were two tiles of the three that are next to the portals, which were revealed in the how to setup video that were part of the expansion. Those tiles have been removed out of the equation and instead replaced randomly with other core game tiles. In this setup video, I also mentioned that the top card from each of the equipment decks, as well as the legendary equipment decks, will be revealed, so those cards are all faced up right now. On the Eldertree board, there is only one Dark Moon token, and after drawing our hunting contracts for each of the two Guardians, we can then combine the two decks together. Shuffle the deck together, and that's all that's needed. That'll do it for the how to set up corrections. Worth noting, though, that we're not going to be using the village element of the village and backpack board for either character, as this is used in other modes of play. So what is Vanea all about? Well, it's a fantastic and mystical world. This game takes place in the Elder Forest, you can see laid out here, and you play as Guardians, the two Guardians I'm controlling of the Eldertree, who must protect it against frightful monsters, bosses, and the spreading Dark Moon rot. Now, as Guardians, it is your task to protect the Eldertree from all monsters and bosses before they reduce its life points to 0, and you also need to prevent the spread of Dark Moon rot, which can lead to the Eldertree's death, ending your game. Now, if you manage to defeat all the bosses and the Eldertree still has at least one life point left, you've won the game. Now, Vanea is very intuitive and easy to learn. As you go across the different dashboards, you'll see a number of different icons. So for example, on the Guardian dashboard and the ability cards on top of it, you might see a number of icons, but these icons are shared across multiple boards within the game and even on the environment itself. This will cut down on your learning in terms of icons across multiple dashboards, as what you see on the Guardian board in terms of icons is similar here, for example, on the backpack. Now I'm going to be playing solo multi-handed with two Guardians, so essentially cooperative mode, working together to protect the Eldertree, defeating the bosses sent against us. My two Guardians start on the hex with the Eldertree, and they can start in any position around it. As mentioned in the how to set up video, there's varying ways you can increase or decrease the difficulty level of the game. And in this case, I've already gone ahead and revealed a number of tiles which are preset. So for example, here I have a tile with a smithy, which shows an anvil icon. Up top there with a spell, I've got a sorceress location. Sorceress locations will allow you to get to the abilities dashboard. I'll show you in just a moment, as well as tie into fusion cards. And the anvil here allows you to start crafting using ore to build different equipment. Now here's a look at the ability dashboard, which also has the elemental fusion deck at the very end. So as you go through gameplay, you can actually go to the sorceress with a gem that matches the corresponding deck in order to pick up a new ability card, as long as you have a slot open on your dashboard to actually house that card. And as you go through the game and go with your companion as well as your character, there'll be specific ones you're able to pick up from. And also, once you collect gems over the course of the game, once you have 4 of any type, you can choose to give them to the sorceress in order to pick up an elemental fusion card, and that card is a very powerful card that can be triggered when your dashboard has its elemental fusion track at the very top. Now above this, you got the equipment area here. So you have on the left side the weapons, in the middle you have the armor, and then you have a helmet which ties into armor as well. So essentially the different levels, 1 ore, 3 ore, and 6 ore. You're going to see the cost across the bottom of each of them and exactly what type they are. And again, the top card is face up, so you can see what you're working towards. I also want to touch on the Guardian dashboards at a high level, give an idea as to what you need to focus on. So first off, the character here has a number of abilities. If we get matching icons off the gear we craft, we can gain additional bonuses, whether it's for attack or defense. And that's based on the craftable items we end up placing here. We'll talk again about that later on. There's some connection points here which are cool between synergies between the weapons or the armor, for instance. And then over here, you'll see 2 gems that are listed on the character or the Guardian, in this case, red and green. So those are the decks we grabbed for abilities, which got us the 2 abilities we have here to start off. As we equip ourselves more and more with more weapons and more armor, we're going to unlock additional slots for abilities, which open up other opportunities for cool synergies with our stuff. Now, we also have elements here. There's 6 of them, and one of them is going to be boosted by 4 to start off. It's going to be random, or you can select it if you wish. In my case, I got the lightning bolt for this character, so a 4 die at the very top goes into that position, and we can uptick all of these over the course of gameplay. The lightning one is already capped out, but there's alternate ways to use the point that you would normally put into that area if you had one available. We'll talk more about that later on. Over here, we have elemental dice, so you can actually work your way up to gaining an elemental dice. You can work your way up to be able to trigger that elemental fusion card I talked about before. And of course, your Guardian has health and it has mana. So as you go through the game and you take any hits of health, you start at 8, you will drop down the corresponding column. For mana, as you use abilities, you're going to see a mana cost right next to it. So if I want to use a healing root to bump up my health by 1, it's going to cost me 1 mana, as well as the AP if I am in the midst of an action. And that is going to drop my AP by 1. Now, Garrett's dashboard looks a little bit different, but relatively the same to the other Guardians. So essentially the tracker cubes in the same positions, of course, a different color to represent, and we have a standee of the same color in play to know exactly who is who. We got monster contracts here, so when the regular monsters come out, if they match these contracts and we take them down, we can actually gain 2 gems of our choice. Very beneficial. There's also an elemental affinity here to Earth in her case, so a +4 on that. And then you can see specific types of gear she can craft with these icons will give her boosts in either attack or defense, depending on what she does here. And her ability cards obviously come, as I mentioned, from the gems red and blue, which were drawn from the ability dashboard or display. Now, this is the monster display, better known as the collection board. Essentially, as you go through the game and you're defeating monsters in cooperative mode, you're working together to take down a group of monsters that belong to a specific element in order to gain a +1 in that element. And that happens across both Guardians, whether they help out or not. Final things to touch on before we dive into our first round of play are the major dashboards that count the rounds, the health of the tree, and the Dark Moon Rot. So first off, at the very top left, you're going to see a tree in a more column pattern. So essentially that tree diminishing in terms of its look, because that is going to track the Eldertree's health. And that moon is going to go down the column, and if it reaches the bottom, the Eldertree has been completely defeated, whether it be by monsters attacking it, which hit it for 1 AP when they're next to it, or it's from a boss sitting next to it, which hits it for 2 AP, that tree will be demolished down to nothing. If it happens, we lose the game. Now, this board is known as the Dark Moon board, and it's going to have a number of Dark Moon Rot tracker tokens across the bottom of it, 20 in fact. The Dark Moon Rot tokens are in place. Above that, that gray row is going to be used every single time one of the Guardians takes a life point hit. That track is going to move to the right, 1 for each one. So if we lost 2 health, that moon icon in the top left is going to go down to the 2 position. Now, as players take hits, that marker, the moon marker, will move down the gray track all the way to the 10th position. And when it lands there, 2 things are going to happen. All the monsters and bosses become stronger. The cards for them are flipped over, making life more difficult for you. And 2, the Dark Moon Rot begins to spread. It's going to spread beside every single monster on the next space they enter. Bosses are always going to spread the Dark Moon Rot. So long story short, over the course of the game, Dark Moon Rot is going to start spreading across the game board, affecting different hexes and their use, and you're going to have to try and combat that. And you can do it by actually finding what's known as a magical leaf within the game world and taking it back to a unicorn nest, which is a location on one of the hexes. Doing this will allow you to remove up to 4 black rot, and you'll see exactly what you can remove depending on the difficulty level down the bottom left of that dashboard we're talking about right now. The iconography is a bit small. It'll be increased for the final version. Dark Moon Rot can also spread as you pull gems out of the bag. The drawstring bag that we set up in the How to Set Up video has what's known as spoilt gem hearts inside of it that can cause the Dark Moon Rot to spread. The final thing to go over is the round board, and this ties into the structure of the game. So at the very top, you're going to have a number of game rounds. A game round consists of 10 rounds, starting at the very beginning, and round number 1 goes all the way through 10, and then at the very end, you'll see it +1 to the Dark Moon cycle, which is below it in the row. And that means that token is going to move, which will be the one that is sitting right here in this green space with the boss icon on it. It would move to the next position. In this case, based on setup, when it lands the next position, it'll be going to the yellow level of difficulty and also be spawning a boss. And then we're going to go through a second cycle at the very end for a total of 20 in this play. A regular game is 30 turns, so that's 3 Dark Moon cycles, but you can scale it how you want. Long story short, the hourglass will move across the 10 game rounds, and every game round inside of it will have a player phase and a monster phase. Once you get to the end of the 10th game round and you're about to go into the Dark Moon cycle, the refresh phase occurs. There's 5 things that happen on top of some of the things I mentioned down below with this icon moving to the next position. There's a number of other things to clean up before you go into a full new Dark Moon cycle. But don't worry, as we're going through a total of 20 game rounds, you're going to see that right in the middle. And that's going to do it for a high-level explanation of the different aspects of the different game boards and displays across this game area. You're going to see these in action as we get into gameplay right now, starting in round number 1 of the first Dark Moon cycle. Inside of round number 1, the first phase is the player phase, where the Guardians get to activate, so we pick which Guardian we want to have activate in cooperative mode, and I'm going to choose Durin to start things off in yellow. When a Guardian activates, you have 3 action points. You can choose to use it for 4 different things. You can use it to move, you can use it to explore, and simultaneously move into the new region you've explored. You can also initiate a close combat, and you can also use non-close combat abilities. Any one of those 4 things costs 1 AP, but there are some things that don't cost any AP, like picking up loot, visiting locations on a hex you're on, or using items in your backpack. You can also trade among players or other Guardians in 1 hex adjacency to you. So for 1 AP, I'm going to move to the adjacent location. Of course, only one individual can be in 1 hex at a time. There's not enough space for more than that. Now, once you've moved in, you can choose if you want to, as a free action, to go ahead and interact with the icon that's there. So in this case, we have an ore that we'd be gaining, and I definitely want to pick some up because I want ore in order to try and craft some better gear. And you craft gear at the smithy, which happens to be right here. So it works out pretty well. So we'll go ahead and we're going to mark this location as being used by my player. It's worth mentioning within a Dark Moon cycle, which is the course of 10 game rounds, you can only use 1 spot 1 time. So anytime your Guardian interacts with one of the icons on a hex, you're going to go ahead and place a marker. You can place it right on the icon if you want, but if you plan to use it again with a different Guardian, you may not want to cover it up, and you might want to place it nearby. So I'll go ahead and do this, so I can remember I can still come here with the other Guardian. So I grabbed an ore token, and this is going to go directly into my backpack down here. Right in the center of the backpack is where you'll place this token. Now for my second action, I'm going to choose to move and explore. So basically we'll be moving into an adjacent hex here that is undiscovered, but we're exploring it in the same action. So we essentially move here, explore it, which means we'll be revealing the event on top and also flipping over this hex, and then we can orientate it however we want. That is absolutely perfect. We're gaining an ore, which means we have a total of 2 now. And that makes it even more intriguing to head towards the smithy here. Now, as we go ahead and explore this new tile, I'll remove my character for a second so you can see all the different icons you can see here. You'll also see we found another smithy here as well. There's also, oh, this is a nexus, a very nice and useful location. We'll talk about that. We've got an ability up here to go after some legendary gear if we happen to get 3 keys. That's pretty cool. We have more ore we can go after here. That's even better. So let's talk about some of the icons we can see here in more detail. So this one right here, this colorful spot you can actually see in different locations across the game world, is known as a nexus. And this allows you to actually go ahead and travel to another nexus or to the Eldertree with just the use of 1 magical root. And of course, you need to have one already in order to use it, but it's very, very strategic in terms of being able to pull you to different locations in the game world. And this right here is known as a legendary chest. It shows 3 keys because you need to have 3 keys traded in order to go ahead and obtain something from that chest. Once you eventually work your way up to cracking into that legendary chest, when you choose a legendary item, you can pick between a weapon, armor, or a helmet, which is pretty awesome. Now, the next icon right here you've seen me talk about is the ore icon. So we've gained 1 of those if we happen to interact with that hex. This one here with the mushroom icon, which allows you to take a healing mushroom token. And when brewing 2 of these in a magic cauldron, it gives you 1 health potion, which refills your life points to maximum once, which again, we have 2 of these potions already to start the game off, but later on, you might want more of them. And this icon right here is for an event. There's an event deck, so if you happen to go there and interact with that hex, you're going to be pulling an event, and you'll find out what happens when you do. In the space I am, there's a mushroom, and I'm going to choose to interact with it, placing a player marker there and taking that token. We're going to move north 1 position with my third action, and also interact there, taking the last ore that's nearby. And that's going to be Durin's 3 actions, and now we're moving over to Gera. So now that we know we have 2 smithies over here, pretty good. A sorceress over here we can utilize. Maybe let's head over here and explore this hex. So I'll spend 1 AP to move to this location, although I could have technically started here from the very beginning of the game, but that is just a hindsight thought at this point. We'll go to the next AP, which I'll place myself right here. Let's explore and see what event token we have here. It is going to be nice, an item. Inside the loot chest, we found a nimble flower. I'm going to take the corresponding token, discarding this card. And when we brew 2 of the tokens in the magic cauldron for the nimble flower, we get a movement potion. So we can create a movement potion that gives us a temporary one-time boost to our action points at 2. Now this is very interesting. Now I'll just move the Eldertree so you can see what's behind and what's going on here. We got 2 icons, but one of them you're going to see is the root we talked about. She's already in a hex after moving and exploring, so 2 action points have been spent, but she can choose for a free action, of course, to interact with the environment and go after what's known as a magic berry, taking 1 corresponding component that matches it. Brewing 2 of these in the magic cauldron gives us 1 mana potion. We have 2 of these already, but we can definitely take the components to have another one get ready in the future to be created. So I place those magic berries down in the inventory area for the character. We'll show you these at the end of the turn. I've got 1 more AP left. What's around me that might be interesting? Now this hex that's adjacent to me that shows the water element is a very special one, because if we happen to have the max level of 4 in that element and we head to that hex, we can gain the corresponding companion. I currently don't have that at 4, so I can't go after it, but if I ever get my water level up to that amount, I can choose to go after the companion there. Even if I already have one, I can switch it out if I want to. So for Gara, for example, she has a 4 in the earth element or the grass element. So essentially she finds that icon, she's going to be able to gain the companion, which is pretty awesome. These are the companions inside of the game, and they have their element up in the top right-hand corner. So those are the elements you're looking for throughout gameplay. It's going to be these 2 right here that we currently have at 4, 1 for Gara, and this one here at 4 for our other character, Durham. And if we find those locations, we can go after the companions there, providing us bonuses and also adjustments to the gems that we can interact with abilities-wise. I'm actually quite torn between this location here with the item and this location over here with the root. Let's use our third and final action to check out the loot there. Again, remembering we only have 2 player markers out because we used 1 movement that went from here to here, and there was no symbol here when we made that movement, so we didn't have to place anything down marker-wise as we didn't interact with anything in that hex. Let's see what we get off the top of the deck. It is going to be a feather. And it's not just any feather, it's a phoenix feather, and that is going to allow us, when brewing 2 of these in the magic cauldron, giving us 1 earth phoenix potion, which can be able to revive a guardian with full life and mana once. Very powerful. So overall, pretty good. We'll place that inside the inventory, and we've got quite a bit going on in our backpacks already in the first game round. So at this point, we are now done the player phase, and the monster phase is a moot point because there are no current monsters in play. Now, it is worth mentioning there is monster spawns that are going to happen during the 10 game rounds within a Dark Moon cycle. You can see this across the row here in gray. There is a spawning of monsters coming from portals at 3 and 8. So we're moving on to round number 2, and it's worth mentioning as you explore further into the game world, event tokens may crop up monsters or bosses against you. We'll start things off with Durin again this round. You'll see in the very center of the hex, the one I didn't talk about has a monster icon on it. That ties back to the monster farm, which goes ahead and gets you a monster contract. Now, we already have 2 to start the game, but if you get one of these ones, you must complete it. Now, seeing as I'm on my way to the smithy anyway, let's go ahead and jump right into the monster farm, and I'll go ahead and interact with it. Now, I don't have to, but I'm going to choose to. This new monster contract is for the Pyro. We gain 2 gems as a reward when we take it down. It's worth mentioning there's different types of benefits you can get off of these contracts. So far, we've seen a lot of the ones with the 2 gems of choice, but there's other ones in here as well. For my second action, we'll head into the smithy, and we'll definitely interact with it. I'm going to gather up all 3 of the ore tokens from my backpack. And as we go to the smithy, we want to keep in mind what we have here currently, which is nothing, but also want to keep more importantly in mind with what we have for icons here. The 4 icons can potentially gain us additional bonuses for free so long as we satisfy them. So in other words, if we craft equipment that lines up with these 4 icons in any way, we can start to gain additional benefits on combat and defense. So we want to look for those. So remember when I described this earlier, we have columns here specific to weapons, armor, and helmet armor. So we're going to use these 2 defensively and this one offensively. And they go from this row being 1 ore, 3 ore, and then finally 6 ore. Now the icons that I was telling you to keep an eye on are going to be in the bottom right-hand corner of each of these. And you'll see some of them actually line up with the icon we have on our character. So this sword does, this sword does, this one does not. Now, in terms of the armor, the very top slot here has an icon that does match, giving us a +1 to our defense. This one matches as well, +1 to defense. This would roll 1 die, this would roll 2 dice, and it's all based on what's in the bottom left-hand corner as to how many dice you're going to get in terms of rolling with that equipment. You'll see once you get up to the really expensive 6-or on this one, you get 3 dice to roll, but this icon does not match anything that that character favors, so you don't get that +1 on top of it. And in fact, you actually get no bonus whatsoever for any of these headpieces over here, as none of these icons on the bottom right line up with what this character likes. I was originally thinking I would spend 1 or to take this one here and this one here. This one gives me the +1. This one does not. This icon is not on my dashboard, which I do not like. So if I want to go 1 set up, I'm going to be spending 3 ore, which is all the ore I have to go after this one. It would be a great weapon per se, but leave me with nothing on the defensive side. Or I could even go after this for 3 and give me a great defensive option. It's a tough call, but I think I'll go on the offensive. So I've crafted this weapon for 3 ore, so I'll remove my 3 ore at this point, and also because the icon matches one of my favorite types of weapons, I gain the bonus. So essentially you take this cube and now place it in the top left-hand corner to denote that you now have this bonus activated at a +1 on the offensive side. You'll notice shapes on either side of the weapons. When more weapons are gained and crafted in the future and you line them up in a specific way that the icons actually match, you gain the benefits as well. So this would actually give us additional health as well as additional on the offensive side of the equation we could take advantage of. You'll also notice when you gain equipment in the icon spots that they match icons up here, which means you're unlocking ability slots you can make use of going forward. And you'll take a look at the actual weapon you've created in this case for the slots that are up here with the sword icon, and it's telling us now we can place individual abilities that have the red gem on the back. So when we go to the sorceress, if we want to pick up a brand new ability by spending a gem that corresponds, we can then come up here, grabbing this card, flipping it over, and placing it into the sword slot, as it now is going to be activated and ready for use. So not only when you craft a weapon will you be excited for the fact you've gained some additional dice to use during combat, which is always a good thing, you also can start thinking about how you're going to combine it with another weapon in order to get additional benefits. Tying your weapons to your favored weapons for that character is also fun for additional bonuses, on top of bonuses you can get for taking out a monster group of a specific element, bonuses for having a companion that has strength in a particular element, and also the actual element die themselves, which adds additions into the equation. So there's a lot of synergy going on here. So I got one more action to spend, and it's worth mentioning you will never place a player marker in any location in the game that does not contain any loot that you don't get any loot from. So that would be things like the Eldertree, the Smithy. So for instance, we actually have to remove this player marker. It does not get placed here because you can actually go back here and do it multiple times if you wish. The Sorceress, the Unicorn Nest, the Legendary Chest, the Magic Cauldron, the Thicket, and Companions. All those spaces do not get a player marker when used. Now you might have seen this coming, but maybe you didn't. The third action is going to be to head into this hex. I want to explore this area. So let's go in and we're going to check it out. What do we get? Oh, we found ourselves a monster. The top card of the monster deck is a Plantangra, and you're not going to use this side. This is the stronger side of the creature. As I mentioned, there's game effects that will trigger that. We talked about that earlier. But here is what the monster will come in at. Now, it's going to depend on where we're at on the round track in terms of what health value this creature is going to come in at, and if any change to the elements that are shown here are going to occur. So if we happen to be in green, nothing changes from the values shown. If we're in yellow, it goes all up by 2. If we go into red territory, it's all up by 4. We are currently in the Dark Moon cycle for the very first round of play, which is green. So at the green level, nothing is going to be increased for the elemental track that's over here for the different elements. You're going to also see the strongest element for this creature is going to be the grass or earth element, which is a +4. And down below, in terms of its health, it's coming in with 4. And the monster's going to spawn in the center hex exactly where the Explorer token was as we reveal the tile. This is a pretty crazy tile. We got all kinds of stuff going on here. We got a thicket in the corner. We have a sorceress shack here. We have another smithy, which makes 3 of them right here. These guys must be competing for work constantly. This one here is a nexus space, and over here we have one of those legendary loot boxes. We need 3 keys to open it. Now, I've also landed on an elemental space, as you can see, and that is going to align with ice. Now, unfortunately, I do not have a level 4 in ice, so no companion can be taken from this location. Now, as of right now, we're still in the player phase, but I do want to show you the monster card all set up. So we have 4 here for the health of this monster based on us being in the green Dark Moon cycle up on the round track. You'll see the elements all here, and you'll see one highlighted with color, letting you know exactly which one that monster is attuned to, which is going to be grass or the earth side of the equation, which is a +4. So essentially, that's what it's going to be using to attack against me. The good news is, as you can see from the small arrow beside it, it's always going in clockwise order in terms of what it's going to be attacking against my character. And the character beside it actually aligns with electricity or lightning. So essentially, I have a great die for that, and the character that's right next to this monster is a perfect fit to defend against it. My yellow guardian is now done its turn. We're moving over to Gara. Now, I was thinking strategically as to how I could maybe get over there and attack this monster, but I don't think it makes a lot of logical sense. And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But what I could do with Gara is I could actually go 2 spaces to this root right here, picking it up and then immediately using it to take me to the Eldertree, or more importantly, an Eldertree Nexus. And that's going to have it be one of these icons right here, which is a single tree icon. And there's a number of them across the game board, but one is literally right beside the monster. So I could actually go 1-2 actions, use the root doesn't cost an action, and then it'd be beside the monster. I could do a close combat with the monster and try to fight it. But going into this, I don't have much for dice rolling and abilities, although I might be able to pull something off. I don't really want to have 2 characters ending their turn that close to the monster when we get into the monster phase and it activates. So maybe we'll keep Gara away for now, even though I could technically try this. Now I'm going to have Gara go ahead and use 1 action to head here, and we've already interacted with this space, so we can't interact with it again within this Dark Moon cycle. We're going to take another action to head into this area here, which has the magic root, which I really want, so we're going to take that. So now with this root, we're going to be able to get ourselves to a Nexus or to the Eldertree whenever we wish, which is great. I'm not going to go ahead and get myself over here to the monster. I want to stay away for now, see how my yellow guardian can deal with it in the future, and we'll continue onwards. As I mentioned, I really want to get some ore going for Gara, so I've gone ahead and moved her into this location, and she's going to go ahead and take that ore. That's going to be her 3rd action, and an ore going into her supply. The player phase is done, we're on to the monster phase, and in this game round, we actually do have a monster, and so this monster gets 2 action points. It's going to be heading primarily to the tree. If it happens to move and go past a guardian, it's going to attack the guardian. So it will be moving 1 space on the shortest path to get to the tree, and as it passes across a guardian, it is going to attack it. Now, when a monster is attacking you, take a look at its strongest element. In this case, it's going to be Earth, and that's a +4. It's going to be attacking whatever is clockwise in the next position. So in this case, it'll be going after lightning, and lightning is exactly what I'm strong in at a +4, which essentially means the elements will wipe themselves out in terms of a bonus. If it wasn't the lightning that my character had a 4 in already with the die, then this thing would have a decent advantage on me. Now, to determine how many attack dice are going to be given to the monster, you take a look at your round tracker board. You find where the Dark Moon cycle currently resides, the bottom track, and you're going to see what color is underneath of it. In this case, it's green, but more importantly, right beside there is a number of dice that is going to be added in for attack dice. It's going to be 1. So 1 attack die going in for the monster, as well as an ability die that'll tell us what the monster is doing in its ability area at the very bottom. Also worth mentioning, because we're in the green area, you take a look at this area right here to see if there's any increase to the element track here in terms of what they get for bonuses. If we happen to be in yellow, for instance, it'd be a +2 on every single element, which means this would go from a +4 to a +6. The monster attack will be 3 things combined together. It's going to be the sum of all sword values off of the dice that it gained, the black dice. It's going to also take into account its ability die, and that's going to trigger an ability off its card, and also its element will be added into the equation. The Guardian is on the defensive, and so we get 1 to 3 dice depending on our strongest defensive equipment, which we currently have none right now. And so because we have none, we automatically get 1 die in for defense by default. So the 3 things we add into the equation for defense are going to be dice rolled, and it can be a maximum of 3 on the defensive side here. The monster's maximum is 3 as well. Of course, when the monster rolls, it's looking for swords, and when we roll, we're looking for shields. The other thing we add to the equation is our element. It's 4. The monster's is 4, so like I said before, that's going to be a moot point in this case. And then finally, we can add in an ability card or up to a maximum of 2 of them if there is a gear icon. So we'll go ahead and roll our defensive die to see how much we have defensively from the die. We do have 1. We get 4 off of the element that is being attacked, so it's going to be a total of 5. And the ability cards that I have, I don't want to use at this current moment, and this one is specific to a ranged combat, which I'm currently not doing. But if I wanted to use any kind of abilities in the future, you pay the mana cost you can see in the bottom left-hand corner in order to pull it off, which would have the mana track going down. So now let's go ahead and roll the dice for this enemy and see what happens, ability-wise and as well as the... Ooh, it got itself its +1 off the die. So 1 here plus the 4 means that we're tied that way. Now let's see what this ability die is going to do for us. And oops, it was on the wrong. This is what I actually rolled. And that is going to be, well, based on the transparent icon, which is here, and the full icon here, it's going to be this row at the top, which is a +1 to attack. So it actually gets 1 hit on me. So on the ability die, you're going to see 2 different icons. It is possible to also roll blank, which is the preferred situation. But if you roll this one here, you take a look at the bottom row, and it's going to be offensive on the left, defensive on the right, depending on what it's doing. So we're obviously looking at the left-hand side, but we rolled this result, and that's going to be a plus on the actual value. You'll notice that one icon doesn't have a square around it. Basically, if the one has a square around it and you get that, so you'd have to roll this in that case. If you got this, then it would be an extra die coming into the equation to be rolled. So 1 hit coming through, and that's going to affect our health, dropping us from 8 down to 7. So not a massive hit, but that does have a ripple effect on one of the boards up top. I'll talk about that in a second. We'll drop ourselves down by 1. For every life point that we lose, we're going to increment the Dark Moon board by 1. And as I talked about before, if it happens to land on the 10th space, then at that point you have initiated the Dark Moon phase, and those 2 things are going to happen around the monsters and bosses flipping their cards over, making them tougher will occur, as well as the Dark Moon rot beginning to spread in different ways from the monster and from the boss, which is not good. There's still 1 more AP for this monster, and it's going to use it in order to move closer to the tree. Again, it could go in either one of these spaces, so in this case we can choose. I'm going to keep it close enough to us that we can get there quickly in order to attack it. Game round number 2 is in the books. Number 3 coming up, we're moving the sand timer, which will land on a monster spawn. And as you'd expect, the second we do this, we're going to be spawning some monsters, and it's based on the player count of guardians in the game, which will be 2. So 2 new monsters coming in. When spawning for the 2 monsters, we'll be rolling these dice twice. These dice include a D4 and D6. The D4 will tell us which gate the monster is coming out of. The D6, which has shields and swords on it, is going to tell us if we get a shield icon, 1 monster is coming through. In this case, as an example, Portal 4. If we roll this result, then in Portal 4, 2 monsters are going to be coming through. And then we go ahead and roll the dice again for the second monster spawn. So let's go ahead and actually do this for real right now and see which one it's coming out of and how many. We got ourselves 1 coming out of spawn 3. The snacker is coming out. We're currently at green, so 4 HP, and this is actually in line with one of the hunting contracts that we have on Gara. I place the monster card below. The monster spawns next to the gate. It's not going to spawn on this location here because these 2 are part of the choice you have at the beginning where you want the portal to be. But once you are actually spawning a monster out of here, it's going to go to the essentially the furthest space away from the Eldertree that is available. So in this case, we'll go ahead and place it here, and it's going to be making its way across. If another one was to come out a second monster, if we happen to have rolled again this, then the second monster would just pop in right here. We're not done yet. We're rolling 1 more time, though, for that second monster spawn. Let's go ahead and find out. This, again, because we have 2 guardians, it's going to be 2 monsters coming out of spawn 1. Night Ghost and Pyro are coming out together, again, on the green level, and we actually do have a hunting contract for Pyro. It's attached to Durin. 2 more monsters out of the portal up here, so we have a total of 3 that just came in for a total of 4 overall in the game. Inside the player phase, I'm going to activate the Guardian here in yellow. We're going to go 1 space for 1 AP into this blacksmith smithy location, not leveraging the actual location at all, but we're going to go ahead and do a ranged attack against this enemy. So there's a ranged icon in the top right-hand corner of this ability. It costs 1 mana, so we'll drop our mana down by 1 in order to pull it off. It allows us to decrease the enemy's health by 1. Now, if there was multiple enemies around me, I'd be hitting each one of them for 1, but it's just going to be 1 enemy in this case. Now, it's worth mentioning these abilities directly affect the monsters or the boss's health, so it's dropping down to 3. Now, an advantage to doing a ranged attack or attacking from a thicket, which is a specific location on the game map, is you will not take what is common from the monsters and bosses, which is a counterattack. So in this case, nothing coming back at me. The game allows you to do ranged attacks or close combat, and when you make a ranged attack, you automatically can take advantage of a close combat as well. Now, the close combat attacks are the ones that will trigger the monster or boss doing a reaction back at you, attacking you afterwards. And again, if you're in a thicket, you're not being attacked, or if you hit from range, you're not being attacked. In my case, I shot from range. The attack's not coming back. There's no counter, but as I go for a close combat now, which we're going to go ahead and roll, after that, the monster, if it's still alive, will try to hit me back. So in terms of action points spent, 1 is used along with the mana in order to pull off the ranged attack that I did. Now we do a close combat attack, which costs another action point as normal. It's worth mentioning on your turn when you have your 3 actions, if you want to do a close combat attack against a specific monster, you cannot do another close combat attack using another action point in the same turn. So this is why you get the advantage of doing a ranged and then a close combat. You can actually target the same monster twice inside of a turn, whereas if you are going with just close combats, you might have to break up your combats across multiple monsters or use your other guardians to come in and help. So this attack will be a bit more exciting as we actually have a weapon that brings in 2 combat dice, so that's awesome instead of just the 1 default if we didn't have any equipped weapons. It also has a plus sword icon, so we essentially have one of these icons already thanks to the fact that this weapon ties to a favorite weapon of the character. So we have 1 guaranteed icon in, we've got 2 dice to roll. We're now going to be attacking with our lightning element as that's my strongest element. And when we're looking at the elements in terms of what we're going to focus on and use for our attack, I'm using electric, but I could choose any other one that I might have, but you're always attempting your best to try to hit the one that is 0 on the enemy. So you'll see in the elemental track here, one of them is 0, in this case it's wind. So to get the best bang for buck, I would want to be attacking with ice, which is the one before it. If I was using ice on my side and say I had a level 4 in there, for instance, that'd be 4 right there, and their defense would be on wind at 0, which means I'd be able to do some serious damage to this thing, potentially killing it with its life being as low as it is. But unfortunately, I only have the element of lightning at this point, which is a total of 4, which means defensively it's going to be using its wind, which is a 2. And based on the round track, as we talked about before, 1 black die coming in, maximum of 3 potential for the black dice, and the ability die will come in, again, focusing on the right-hand side for defense this time. So I'm going to go ahead and roll my player dice right now to see what I get to add into the +1 I already have here, as well as the 4 from here. We got ourselves 1. So 1, 2, and this is going to be 6 total. Now on top of the 6 we have, we can take a look at our abilities to see if we want to add anything in, again spending mana in order to do so. And then on top of that, we can also add the elemental die in if we have the elemental track to the top, which reminds me, whenever you have a close combat, which we're doing right now, both of these tracks increase at the beginning by 1. So you're slowly working your way up to getting the elemental die. Once this track is up at the top, you can actually cash in for that die during the close combat that you're in, and then it resets down to 0. Here you have this elemental fusion, and this is going to tie in with the cards that tie back to the sorceress. Long story short, you need to get any combination of 4 gems to the sorceress to get one of those elemental fusion cards up here in the top right, and then once this is at the top, that will allow you to trigger whatever ability is on it. There's no close combat icon on the ability cards over here, so we can't use them at this point in time, which essentially is a fist icon, the top right-hand corner. Moving on to the elemental die, it's not charged up enough to be able to use, so we stand at 6 right now. Now this thing only has 3 life points remaining, so here's hoping we can take it down. We're going to roll the dice for it and see how it does. So this value right here is going to provide an additional shield, which it already got a shield here, so that's 2 shields plus the 2 off of the water element based on that's the one we're attacking because we chose lightning. So 4 defense is what it gets, and I happen to have 6, which means 2 gets through, and that's not enough to kill it, but it puts it right on the bleeding edge of death. Because I did a close combat, it is going to counterattack me right now. Let's resolve the counterattack. Of course, it's using its strongest element as always when it's on the attack, which means it's hitting my lightning, which is my strongest in this case. So we're rolling the dice to see what happens. It got itself a defense here, which is going to be nothing off of that. It does have 4 from the element, and this is going to give it a +1 die. So another die roll into the equation to see what happens, and it ends up being a 1. So 1 on top of the 4 is 5. And I've got a total of 4 right now, so I'm hoping to see 1 shield so I can block the entirety of it, and I got it. So that means nothing coming back at me. With only 1 action left to spend, I'm going to use it in order to trigger this ability here. And this is going to allow me to heal 1, because remember I took a hit long ago. We're going to spend 1 mana right now, dropping our track down to 6, but bumping our health up to 8, which is our maximum currently. Now I'm going to need to focus on using my other guardian to come in and help out. So Gara's going to come down for 1 action point into this location, and when she does, she's going to go ahead and grab while she's here interacting and taking that mushroom. So that's 1 action. The second action will be to go ahead and attack the monster, and we do have a close combat ability, which is nice to have. We can add that into the fray. Strength is in Earth. As we're going into a close combat, both of these tracks are going to go up by 1, and we already know what the monster is going to be rolling, so we got the dice there. I'm going to be adding 1 white die into the equation because I have absolutely nothing for weapons, which is always nice. I'm going to be using this element for sure at 4. And As I'm using the earth element against it, it's going to be defending using this element only a 1. So I've got a big time advantage. Now I could, if I want to, if I really want to sweeten the deal here, I could go ahead and add this into the equation, and I might as well do it, I guess. Although I do have to spend a mana, and I think it's kind of overkill in this case. But essentially what this would do is it would add an icon into the fray right away, so we'd have 2 essentially. It would also reduce the monster's defenses by 1. So if it happens to get an icon in defense, whether it's a die or it comes off of the ability of the monster, it loses a defense, and of course it has to be 1 hex away, which would be fine. I don't think we need this. I don't want to spend the mana and kind of go overkill with it, so we're just not going to use it because I've already got such a huge advantage with 4 here against the 1 defense it has there. I think I've got the advantage I need. So let's go ahead and roll the dice. So we're going to go ahead and make our attack here, and hopefully we can kill it off. There's 1 right there. So we have 1, which is great, on top of the 4, which is 5. And then the enemy's going to go ahead and make its roll, and we're going to find out what it's going to do. It's going to add no defense from this die, but it does have a trigger here on its ability card. And at the very bottom, for defense, it will roll another defensive die into the equation to try to see what it gets. And it doesn't get anything. That, my friends, is more than enough damage coming through to take out this individual. So it is now dead, and it has no counterattack because it doesn't live through it. And that's going to allow us to go ahead and put a tracker cube on the monster collection board. So even though Duran did most of the attacking and Gara came in behind and got the 1 swipe to get the kill, she's going to place her marker here. But remember, in cooperative play, you're working together to try to complete the monster group. And whether one Guardian gets 1 kill in each of those 3 Earth Element creatures, or we have a mixture between the 2 Guardians across the 3, that completes the group, which would then allow both Guardians to take advantage of a +1 for the monster collection of the Earth Element, bumping up this overall value to a 5 for this individual, and finally giving 1 over on Duran's board. So it's something to work towards, as it can help you out. Another awesome thing you get when you take out a monster is going to be the elemental energy of that monster based on whichever one it's strongest in. Again, it'll be highlighted based on the color in the elemental wheel, so it's going to be Earth. So this provides Gara with 2 options going forward. She can discard this token in order to get an uptick, or essentially a die rated at a 1 in the Earth element. But of course, she's already maxed out at 4, so that's not going to be the best way to make use of that. Another way you can use it is in order to heal the Eldertree, which is something that is definitely going to be necessary as the monsters start to try and get towards it. The great news is we no longer have a monster very close to the Eldertree. So I've used 2 actions. One was to move, and then I did a close combat for my second action point. I've got a third to spend. As I'm continuing to try and accumulate ore so I can make my way to the smithy, which is actually in 3 locations close by, we'll definitely go to this location for my third action, grabbing an ore, so now I have a total of 2 with this character. That's going to do it for the player phase. We're moving on to the monster phase. The monsters are going to activate. They each have 2 AP, and they're headed towards the Eldertree. And that's certainly bringing a lot of action towards the Guardians. That does it for game round number 3. Moving on to game round 4. There's nothing to worry about in terms of spawning things. You can see another monster spawn coming when we get to game round 8. And what you want to do with these monsters, again, take a look at their weakness, the one they're really weakest to, because that might help you in determining which of your Guardians should be going after which monster. Now, strategically, Duran would be a perfect character using lightning to go up against Pyro, because Pyro's ability to defend when it goes from lightning to the next element is going to be water, and that is a 0. So going after Pyro with lightning is a good thing. Duran's going to start off game round number 4 as well. We're going to use 1 AP to get into this space right here. I won't be interacting at the smithy, as I have nothing in terms of ore to be able to convert and craft into any kind of equipment, but I am going to certainly do something, and it could work out really nicely because I could do a ranged attack using my Whirl Slash here, and that would actually affect both enemies around me. So we are definitely going to go ahead right now and spend some mana in order to pull this off, allowing me to do damage to both of these individuals from range. So Pyro and the Night Ghost are both hit by 1, which is awesome. What makes this even more fun is the fact we also have a hunting contract for Pyro, so this works out nicely. If I can hunt and defeat it, I gain 2 gems of my choice. So let's go for a close combat against Pyro specifically, and we're going to go ahead and bump up our tracks. We're getting close to getting an elemental die at some point, which could be very handy, and also being able to trigger this elemental fusion card if we can actually get one from the sorceress by converting gems or giving gems to her. We're going to get our 2 here from the sword. We're going to use lightning as part of our attacks. So we're going to have 4 there. And we also have that nice passive off the fact we're using a sword that this character likes, which is 1 icon for sword, which is awesome. Now we'll take a look at the elemental track for Pyro. As I mentioned before, if we're using lightning as our element, then we're going after its water, and that is 0, and that is a good thing. It makes sense that a creature that is strong in fire is going to be very weak in water. So let's go ahead and make the roll and see how we do. And we'll be rolling dice for pyro as well. It's actually really hard to see that sword, which is buried behind the stand. So we got 1 off the die. We get 1 passively from here, which is 2. We have 4 off the elemental, which is 6. And it's time to see what the monster is going to be doing for us. It's going to be a shield, so it gets 1 defense. It's triggering this ability row, which is going to be the bottom one. And on the defensive side, it's going to be the shields times 2. That is nasty. So whatever it gets, which is 1 shield in this case, is times by 2. So now it is 2. So that could be absolutely horrible in a situation where multiple monster dice were rolled. Again, the maximum is up to 3, and then you get a times 2 in there. That would be bad. It's actually a better result than actually getting the one above it. If we had got this instead, it would have been a +2 icon, which would have been 3 total defense. Regardless, we got 6, and it only got 2, so 4 going through. That is way more than enough to take Pyro down. So 1 less monster to deal with, and no counterattack as we took out the monster before it had a chance. So we're going to go ahead and remove the standee and remove the card. That monster was attuned to the fire element, so we're gaining 1 on the backpack for this Guardian. And a player marker placed in this monster group category. And as I hunted down and defeated Pyro, I get a reward of 2 gems of my choice from the gem bag. When you're taking your 2 gems of your choice, you can take any combination of these, or you could take 2 of the same one if you wish. You can also, I believe, and I'm not 100% certain on this, so we'll leave this up to the designer to chime in, but essentially this is the Spoiled Heart gem. Normally when you pull this from the bag, when you roll the icon, or you happen to see it during gameplay, it will spread the Dark Moon Rot, and it also can be used in order to feed your companion if you have one. There's different uses for it. So there might be an instance where you want to pick this one up right now. I believe you can. It is considered a gem, but I might be mistaken, so I'm going to for now just go ahead and choose from here. The reason I'd rather go from this common pool is you can use these gems in different ways. For example, like going to the sorceress and picking up a card that attunes to what you have in terms of gems over here in your slots to pick up some cool new abilities. So for me, I'm going to choose to go with these 2 thanks to the hunting contract. Now, there is something that I missed earlier but mentioned on screen, and that is when you take down a monster, I forgot to roll the loot die. You also get to roll loot when you take down a monster. So we're going to do that retroactively for Gera, and then we're going to go ahead and roll the loot die for the monster we just took down here for Duran. So let's roll the loot die for Gera for the original monster kill, and it's going to be 1 item. And that ends up being an ore for her, which is awesome. Now over here for Duran, let's go ahead and roll and see what we get. We got ourselves, 2 results. The symbols might be hard to see, but that is an ore and a gem on the loot die. And on the loot die, it's not an ore, it's both. So not only do I get an ore, but I also get to go to the gem bag and draw. Now, when you draw from the gem bag, if you happen to get one of the normal gems, that's the one you take. If you happen to get what's known as a Spoiled Heart gem, then you're able to keep pushing up to 3 times to try and find a normal gem. But every time you take a Spoiled Heart gem, there's going to be an effect in the game state. Let's see if we actually get one out of the bag here. Drawing from it, not knowing what we're going to get, we got ourselves a red one. We'll take it. As that is a common gem, one of the 4, we have to take that one. But again, if we happen to have gotten the Spoiled Heart gem, we could continue digging, trying to find a common one, but at the detriment of potentially spreading more Dark Root Rot around the game board. Now I'm going to spend Duran's last action in just a moment here, but first let's go ahead and spend this element right now in order to uptick our fire element. We get a 1 die in that location, so we're getting a little bit stronger at different elements. Now with my 3rd AP, I'm going to go ahead and do a close combat against this enemy right here. Now during this turn, I've already done a ranged attack against both the enemies that were beside me, including the one I want to attack now. But remember, you can do a ranged attack as well as a close combat against the same monster inside of a turn. You just can't do 2 close combats back to back. So in this case, I only hit this thing for ranged with my whirl/attack. So I can do a separate AP against this separate monster now as a close combat to try to take it out. Now this monster has 3 HP. We want to strategically think about which element we want to use. I could use electricity, and if I did, it would be going after its wind element, so that is going to be a 2. Or I could go with the fire going after its ice, which would be 0. So in the end, it makes more sense to use my electricity or my lightning bolt. So we know the dice we're using in this roll. We got the 1 off the ability here. We've got 2 dice from the weapon. So I've got my 2 white dice with 4 right here, plus the one that's automatic, so 5 already. And then we're going to add this into the equation, which is going to be a hit. So that's going to be a total of 6 right there. I'm going after the Night Ghost wind element, so it's going to be a 2, and we're rolling the 2 dice to see what else it gets into the equation. It's going to be a blank for the purple, so no ability whatsoever, but 1 defense here, so that is going to be 3. So 3 defense, but it has a health of 3, and I'm hitting it for 6. That is exactly enough to take it from 3 down to 0. We have taken out the Night Ghost. The Night Ghost's strongest element is wind, so we're going to be gaining 1 on the wind element down below. We're also rolling a loot die, and we're marking that particular individual on the monster collection board. Plus, we're moving the standee from play. Let's find out what the loot has for us. It ends up being what we resolved shortly, just moments ago, an ore, which is awesome, as well as a gem. So Duran's getting an elemental energy on wind, as well as some ore to add into the pool. We're going to draw from the bag and find out what gem is coming towards us. Hopefully it's not a spoiled heart gem, and it ends up being a green one. That's really nice. We got 4 gems, and we can use all 4 of these gems if we wish to head to a sorceress to try to get ourselves an elemental fusion card. It's also worth mentioning, too, that we went into this close combat. I also forgot to uptick these values, so they would go up by 1 going into the close combat. I could have used an elemental die, but knowing what I got in terms of, well, I'm not going to retroactively change anything anyway, but I think I was far and away safe. I'll hold on to that for later on, but what I want to mention right now is that we'll be able to eventually get to a sorceress and convert these 4 gems into an elemental fusion card, which then, as this gets up to the very top, we'll be able to trigger in the future. And we'll place the player marker of the individual that killed the monster in the space. So we got 1 here in fire, wind, and also earth. So Duran's done a great job of cleaning up some of the monsters in the top left-hand corner, so Garen now can more peacefully move around and maybe do some interactions, especially heading to the smithy with 3 ore. Maybe we can even pick up some more things along the way. I could even go after an event right here. So for 1 action, let's check it out and see what we find. This one is called Through the Sky. You meet an eagle. Can you convince him to accompany you? You roll a d6. If you roll a 5 or 6, he follows you and gives you plus 2 AP once, getting to keep this card. And of course, we can discard it to use that 2 AP. Or the offer option says give him a phoenix feather. He follows you and gives you 3 AP at once. So basically, you get it guaranteed without having to roll, and you also get more out of it, which is awesome. Or you can just say move on and do nothing at all. It works out pretty good because we actually picked up a Phoenix Feather earlier. So the question is, do we want to use it in this way to get this card for sure and get 3 AP usage out of it if we discard it, or do we want to use it for its regular use? This is a very critical resource. If you get 2 of these and go to the cauldron, you can actually get them into a potion that will allow you to revive your character at full AP and full mana points as well. So this is a very good token once you have 2 of them. I don't necessarily need it at the moment as I have a couple health potions and mana potions already, so I could lean into this and actually just take this event, but I don't think the 1 AP and the guarantee of it is worth it. I'm going to risk it on the roll. So let's go ahead and make the roll and see whether we're lucky. We need a 5 or 6 to make it happen, and we got a 2, so unfortunately it's not going to work out. And that's okay, I had the opportunity to take it guaranteed, but I really want to hold on to that Phoenix Feather. Now strategically we have to think about using the last 2 actions here and how we do it, because the monster is going to move 2 AP towards the tree, and if I happen to be here at this smithy, it's going to cross my path and attack me, whereas if I move to this one, I'm safe. So we'll shuffle our way over to the smithy. We're going to spend 3 ore tokens and craft something. And that's going to come from our backpack right here. When Gara's crafting, keep in mind the icons that are here to the left of each of these, because those are the ones that will align with her favorite types of weapons and armor. Now looking across the weapons and armor for the different icons that Gara's looking for her favorite weapons and armor, unfortunately for the body slots as well as the weapon slots, none of these will line up except for ones that are of higher value that we don't have the ore to spend, but we do have the option to go after a helmet, and there's a helmet at 3 ore right here, which would actually line up with an icon that is on her, and that would provide her a boost in her defensive dice, and that's not a bad thing. So we'll go ahead and craft that one, placing it on our dashboard, and we're also going to cash in our 3 ore. So we'll place that new helmet into one of the dashboard positions like so, and that is going to align with something over here, hopefully. And you can see the bottom right-hand icon does align with one of these 2, so we can absolutely fill this in to get that +1 defensive icon by default. We also have 2 defensive dice when we're being attacked in the future, always a good thing. Now this won't be an amazing move for my final action, but I want to put myself in position so I can easily get back to where the monster will be as we get out of the player phase. So I'm going to actually have myself head back this way. Again, I'm trying to stay out of the path of this thing. I don't want it to cross my path as it moves towards the tree. We go into the monster phase. It's moving towards the tree, so that's going to be 2 AP usage, and 1/2 gets it that much closer. That's it for game round number 4. Moving on to game round 5. In 3 more rounds, additional monsters will be coming out, but there's nothing saying more monsters or bosses could appear through exploration tokens in the game, because that can absolutely happen. Now going to the player phase, Gera is the best set in order to go after this monster based on the element of Earth, but doesn't have any weapons, so there's a little bit of a trade-off there as to which is better. Both Guardians are useful, but I think we might be able to actually get a victory here for Gera if she can pull this off. So we're going to have her move into this space. She does not gain the benefit of this ore location, which is hidden away here because she's already been there, but she's now adjacent, and for her second AP can make an attack. So I'll be using a white die going in. We're going to be using our elemental die here at 4, which is nice. And I'm also going to choose to pull an ability card into the fray as well. The monster dice are set. We're going to go ahead and roll our white die. We'll talk about the ability usage in a second. We got 1 from there, which is awesome. We have nothing else in terms of bonuses here. So 1 plus 4 is 5 so far. If we want, we could spend a mana right now to make that 6, and then also reduce defense of the enemy 1 shield icon down by 1. Now, when determining what you should do in terms of using abilities, always take a look at what could happen on the monster card. So over here, for instance, when we're attacking with our earth element, it's defending with electricity, which means it has nothing. It's its weakest thing, which is fantastic. Now, if it rolls an ability here that goes on the defensive side and gains 2 health, that's obviously going to be a pain. And if it gains a shield, not so bad. So I still think we don't need that other one at all. We don't need to use that ability against this monster because we have such an advantage on the element side. So we've got 5 going in. Let's see if we can get what we need off this roll from the monster, and it's going to be no defense here, which is awesome news. And then this one here is going to trigger the bottom row, which is going to give it 1 defense. But 1 defense, if that's all it has, all the rest of my damage goes through it from 5, just 1, 4 gets through. That is more than enough to take out this one. It's been taken down. That's absolutely awesome, and it's attuned to the water element, so that is what Gera is going to be adding as a marker onto her backpack, and we're going to go ahead and roll the loot die and see what we get off this. It is going to be a treasure this time and a gem pull. So 1 for the water element, and we're going to go ahead and pull a treasure card, and it ends up being a key, one of the 3 keys we need to go after legendary chest. Definitely not complaining about that. We're going inside the gem bag now and pulling out. We got ourselves an orange gem. And on the monster collection board, the monster we took down is part of the water group. So we're going to go ahead and place a marker for Gera right here. So we have done it. We've cleared out the monsters, and there are none remaining in play, which means we can turn our focus back to exploring some more of the different locations and trying to upgrade our characters. For my final action, I'm going to choose to move to this spot right here, which allows me to go after a gem. So we'll head back inside the bag and see what we can find randomly, hopefully not one of those spoiled hearts. We found another orange gem. We've got 2 of those now in the backpack for Gera, and that's her turn. And now we jump to our other guardian on the opposite side. Now, one mistake I made is I placed a player marker on this smithy, and no player markers get placed on smithies. No issue there. And while I'm at the smithy with Durin, I might as well go ahead and spend the 2 ore I have and take a look around and see what we can spend it on. Now, essentially, I'm just interacting with the space, and it doesn't require a marker to be placed. It doesn't cost an action to do this. I'm just looking at the smithy to see essentially what I could go after. With just 2 ore, though, I'm kind of restrained to going to the top row. And for the different types of equipment, I actually have the ability to go for the middle one there, which is the blue armor. That would actually align with a defensive bonus that I have. So if I pick that one up for 1 ore, I not only get 1 die, which I already have automatically by default, so it's not much of an increase there, but I get a guaranteed passive +1 from it, which is not bad. However, saying that, looking below it, I see a much better piece of armor that I'd almost rather go after that would give me 1 passive icon plus 2 defensive dice. I just need 1 more ore to make it happen. Now, in terms of the weapons, I need to either have a staff or a sword icon. So taking a look across the options, this one would work to align with me, but these other 2 don't in any way. But I'd have to get up to 6 ore in order to get it. So long story short, we won't do anything there at the smithy. We're checking it out just for fun. Let's use our first action point and head into this newly unexplored location and check it out. So we're going to head into here. We're going to flip this over and see what we get. Ooh, we get to draw for the very first time a brand new card coming from the deck in the top right. These are magic spells and they're consumables, so essentially you use them and they're discarded. Let's see what we got. We got ourselves a +2 for health. Not bad. You're going to see along the left-hand side of your dashboard different icons to hold spells, as well as an icon for the fusion card. Of course, I'm placing some of my hunting contracts there for now, just due to space. But when you're playing the game yourself, you'll use the edges of the dashboard for these different things. It's time to find out what hex we found and what's at that location. It seems we found a number of things. More importantly, the rainbow. I'd like to talk about that. We do have a rainbow that was revealed from the very beginning, but we're very close to one now, and I want to talk about why that's important. Also, the nimble flower is in the location we just moved into after spending an action, so we can absolutely interact with this and take it. That's our very first one for the yellow guardian. The orange guardian already has one. 2 of these nimble flowers placed inside of a cauldron will create a nimble potion for you, giving you +2 AP. It's worth mentioning you can also exchange things in your backpacks between your guardians when you're adjacent to each other. Now, a requirement which I have not talked about to this point inside of one Dark Moon cycle, which again is comprised of 10 game rounds, and we're currently in round number 5 right now. By the 10th round, we need to have placed one of our player markers in one of the rainbow spaces. Each guardian has to do this, so we do have to get in there at some point. And it works out because when placing a marker here, by interacting with it, your health and your mana go back to full. So that's going to jump our mana, which was dropped down to 5 over some heavy usage that we used earlier, back to 8. So everything's squared away on our character, which is great. Plus, we've satisfied that character's Dark Moon cycle objective of getting to one of the rainbows. Of course, we're also trying to primarily keep the tree alive. That is our main objective. But inside of a Dark Moon cycle, we still have to visit the rainbow once. Now we have to do that with the other guardian, who is in between 2 rainbows on opposite ends of the map. My third action is going to be go get a magic root. So now both of our characters will have one, which allows us to transport to any nexus in the game world or to the Eldertree, allowing me to move quickly in situations where monsters appear at different locations. So this token's going in the backpack, and it's been marked as well. I'm going to choose to go ahead and spend this token right here rather than saving up to try to heal and help the Eldertree, which we don't need to do at the moment. Let's get some dice going into the wind element. So this character is becoming stronger across different elements as the game goes on. And with no monsters in play, we're moving on to the next game round, which is game round number 6. It's worth mentioning I do have 2 points on my elemental backpack icons for Gara, so she could bump up some dice as well. Now here's the thing to think about. Monsters that are adjacent to the Eldertree will do 1 point of damage to the tree. Bosses will do 2. Now when you have to heal the tree, which you can use these elements that are around the outside of your backpack, and I've got 2 currently, you have to spend the same amount as you have guardians in play in order to heal 1 point of life back on the Eldertree. So say for instance a boss is next to the tree, hits it for 2. It's going to cost me 2 of these no matter what they come from in terms of the elements in order to just heal 1. So it is going to be costly to heal the tree, and so you don't want to always be spending everything you get on your backpack here for just dice increases, because that could come back to bite you in a bad situation. So I think what I'll do is be safe. We'll keep those 2 to the side for now in case we need to do some healing in the future, and we'll go ahead and activate Gara to start things off. She's going to actually explore into this area right here for her first action. And of course, it was bound to happen at some point. We found ourselves a monster. And it ends up being a smasher who is attuned to the earth element. Now we've revealed a location that also has a rainbow. We see one revealed over here, but now we got one even closer, which is nice. A number of other things to check out. Now another thing to note is that every single time I've revealed a tile so far, I've actually kept it upright. This is primarily so that you can see the icons more easily. When you're playing though, feel free to rotate these as you wish. I believe you're able to rotate them into the position you want to have here, as mentioned prior. And another reason that can be beneficial is in a situation like this where a monster shows up and you want to be inside of a thicket, because that is going to help you avoid any counterattacks coming at you from the monster when you attack it. Now another thing to mention is when you're in a thicket, you get a +1 to your attack as an icon, which is pretty awesome by default. And then bosses and monsters can walk through the location, but they cannot spread Dark Moon Rot through there, which is good to know. Now we haven't seen Dark Moon Rot spreading yet, but I guarantee you it will come, and it will be fun when it does. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm inside of a thicket and I absolutely want to attack from it to get that +1 bonus, so let's make it happen. Now my character is very strong in the earth element, and if I'm attacking with earth, that means it's defending with its electric side of the equation, which is going to be 2. It comes in with these dice as per normal, the ability die and the black die. Again, if we get to the next Dark Moon cycle and it gets up to yellow, not only will the HP increase, but also the dice. Black dice is going to go up to 2, so things will get tougher as the game goes along, and that's how it scales until it gets up to red, where it's even stronger. Now for this attack, I'm getting my 1 basic attack die because I have nothing that I'm choosing to use as my strongest weapon. I'm also using this earth element for 4, and I'm going to choose to use an ability card, but I'm going to roll this first to find out what the result is. It ends up being nothing, so we have 4. I'm going to go ahead and spend a mana right now, dropping this down to 7 because I think it's worth it to get 1 value back. So now we're going to have 5, and we're going to reduce the defense of the enemy by 1. So we got 5 plus the 1 from the thicket, which is 6, and we're going to roll the enemy dice and see what it gets. It gets a reduction on its shield if it happens to get one, which it did, so that's not going to occur or do anything for us, or do anything for them, I should say. And the bottom ability is going to give it, what is that symbol? I think that's a reroll of one of these dice, which I think doesn't matter, because if it rerolls the same result, it's still going to be taken away anyway. So in the end, we're throwing 6 at it thanks to being inside the thicket, and it has 2, so 4 is getting through, and that's exactly enough to take it down. So let's do our loot die roll, and we got ourselves looks like a treasure, an item, as well as an ore. And wouldn't you know it, we gained another ore from the treasure. This thing is attuned to its earth element, so we have another marker going into that space. And what's awesome is this is the second earth monster from the group of 3, so we are 1 away from going ahead and getting a bonus to earth. So that monster's been killed off, and we have 1 more action with Gara. Now you'll notice that there's a village icon in the middle of this particular hex, and it's worth mentioning that the village is only used in the competitive mode from my understanding, so I believe we skip past any kind of interaction with this when playing co-op. And we're going to continue. I can go here, I can start heading towards here. It really depends on if I want to kind of explore this way or maybe explore this way in the future. I think it makes sense to head down here, get another gem, and then we can kind of head towards this area here. And we'll head inside the gem bag and pull out a gem. What do we have? Oh no, for the first time, we got ourselves a spoiled gem heart. If you gain one of these hearts, you're going to automatically spread the Dark Moon Rot from one of the Dark Moon portals. You have to roll a d4 to determine this. So let's go ahead and roll the die and see what we get for a result. We got a 2. That's going to be way up in the top right-hand corner. When you place the rot, you place it adjacent to the portal, not in one of the other portal starting spawns. So it has to be this one or this one in this case. So what is bad about the Dark Moon Rot that has started to spread out of the spawn gate up there is that it's going to start covering up interactions in hexes. So as you've already seen, the players are using player markers to denote what interactions they've made on certain hexes. The Black Moon Rot is spreading to stop you from using those other ones as it crawls through the land. The major difference between the two is that when you use a player marker, you're denoting that that player has taken that interaction for the entirety of a Dark Moon cycle, which is for 10 game rounds. In other words, you can't take that again in the future, but it will eventually, when you go into Dark Moon cycle 2, all those player markers will disappear and you'll be able to re-interact with them for 10 more game rounds. So all these orange and yellows will disappear once we get to 10 on the track. But in the case of the Dark Moon Rot, that is going to stick around and continue growing as the game goes on, stopping you from interacting with certain things. And the only thing you can do to prevent it, or I should say the primary way you can get rid of the Dark Moon Rot, is to find a magical leaf inside the game, take it to the Unicorn Nest location, and that will allow you to pull back 4 Dark Root out of play. If you're playing on hard mode, it's only 2 that gets taken away. When you place the Dark Moon Rot, be sure to take it from the Dark Moon board up top. Now remember this creature we took out earlier, but we took it out with Gara, and because Gara took it out, this hunting contract being attached to this character does not provide us with the 2 gems as this character didn't take it out. Now the magic root I was talking about earlier can do one of 2 things. First, you can use it anywhere on the game world to teleport to a nexus. So I could use the root I got from here earlier in the prior round to be able to head to here to be right adjacent to something I can actually explore. Or when you're inside of a nexus space, you can warp yourself straight to the tree with the root. So those are the 2 ways to use that particular item. So let's start things off by going ahead and using it, and we will warp straight to that nexus. Now with 3 actions to spend, we're going to walk right into this area and explore it. Let's see what we find in the center. It's going to be an ore. You won't see me complaining about that. That's a 3rd one for this character. And this time around, I'm going to place the hex, so the smithy is where I'm landing, and I'm going to go ahead and interact with it. I don't have to place any kind of cube for it. I have 3 ore. We're going to go ahead and craft some gear. I'm going to choose to craft this one because the icon in the bottom right aligns to one of my favorite types of gear for this character. Give me 2 defensive dice to roll, and now we've got ourselves a +1 on defense icon passively. And as you can see, the icon in the bottom right lines up with one of the 2 icons that are here, so we definitely can fill this marker in for that passive +1 defense. So we used that magical root to get where we were. We moved 1 space and explored, opening up this hex here. We interacted here at this smithy. We don't have to place a marker. We have 2 action points left. I'm going to head here, which is into a thicket, and then we're going to go ahead and move 1 more from here to explore this location. And let's find out what's underneath the token. It is a treasure. And we found ourselves a 2nd healing mushroom. We actually have 2 of these, which you can put into a cauldron in order to create a healing potion. And we found an elemental location nearby as well, but we're in a space with this spell, so we might as well go ahead and take it. And we can discard this right now to grab an item. And that ends up being a healing potion, but we're at our maximum of 2 right now, so unfortunately we don't gain anything from it. When I was explaining the Dark Moon Rod, I forgot to do something. That was when you get this icon, not only do you roll for this icon, but after you're done placing it, which I did, you continue going ahead and drawing from the bag up to 3. And the only reason you would drop to 3 is if you got 3 of these exact same ones. If you happen to get a common one, you would just take that into your inventory. So we have to go back to the bag and continue drawing. So we might see another black one, or we might see a common one come out. So the next one out of the bag is a green one. And that should have been gained on Gara's turn, so it's going into Gara's inventory. Also, a Spoiled Heart gem goes into the inventory of the person that drew it, so this is also going into Gara's inventory. You can have at maximum 3 Spoiled Hearts inside of your inventory backpack. Once you are gaining your 4th one, you're instead going to place all of those hearts back inside the gem bag. If you don't, you become contaminated, but it is worth mentioning these hearts can actually feed your companion when you have one. There is no monster phase for this round, so that wraps up game round 6. We're heading into game round 7. Let's continue to explore the game world and keep the Eldertree safe. Now, to be clear about the Spoiled Gem Heart, there is nothing wrong with stopping right after you draw one and you spread the Dark Moon Rot to just not draw any more. If you don't want to risk potentially pulling another one and spreading more Dark Rot, you don't have to. But if you do, you have up to 3 times to try to find a common gem. Once you find one, of course, you'd stop at that point. So for me, I drew one, I found the Spoiled Heart, I spread the Dark Moon Rot, and I wanted to risk going further to hope to find a gem, and it worked out in my favor. It might not always work out. You might end up drawing 3 Dark Moon Rots, or essentially those Spoiled Heart gems, and that's going to get 3 Dark Moon Rots spreading out into the game board, messing with the locations you'd love to interact with. Let's start things off with Durin, who's going to be going ahead and moving through all 3 of these locations and interacting at all 3 of these points for all 3 actions. The berries will help with the mana potion in the future in the cauldron, and we got that leaf we were talking about. That's going to help us with trying to push back the Dark Moon Rot. Now, I'm on my way, hopefully, to trying to find a sorceress in the near future because I've got 4 gems with this character, and I'd love to be able to start cashing in to get more abilities, or potentially go after an elemental fusion card would be awesome. Now, going inside the gem bag, we pulled out a blue one. Gara's going to spend a 1 action point to go to this location and getting an item, the chest. And that's going to provide another ore, which is awesome, for a total of 3 on her. Next, I'm going to have my character go into this space right here and then head down to get one of the leaves as well. And with them being near each other, we might be able to trade. Now, both of our characters are out of AP at this moment, but trading is free. It doesn't cost an AP, but you cannot trade elemental energy. So this energy cannot be moved over to the other Guardian. So I'm going to give the berries over here. So we have 2 on this character, as mana seems to be used more heavily so far on this character. And if we look over at the type of gems that this character can use when they get abilities up here in the slots, you're going to want to get some gems that align with what you've got for equipment as well. So red, blue, and orange are best for this character. So we have red, blue, and green. I don't necessarily need the green as much, so maybe trading a green over in order to pull an orange would be nice. And it doesn't have to be equal in terms of the trades either. You can just give things back and forth as you want, especially when you're playing co-op or solo by yourself. You can basically min-max this as much as you want. Now, for me, I'm going to go ahead and give a blue over to this side, which I did, because that aligns to slots that I can gain stuff in at the sorceress later on, because I've opened up that by having this created on this board. Over here, getting an orange. I pulled an orange over here because I didn't have one. That seems to be a pretty good trade right there. That's going to do it for game round number 7. We're moving into 8, and that is going to be a monster spawn. And as you've seen before, we're rolling 2 black dice to make this happen for 2 separate spawns. The first spawn is going to be 1 monster at gate 1, which is right here. And by right here, I actually mean up here, because gate 1, 2, 3, and 4 is how I've been playing this. So the monster is way up there, nowhere near our heroes, which is not good. It's going to be able to make its way there. Hopefully we can use some of the routes that we have maybe to get back to the Eldertree, or somehow traverse back there quick enough. The next one is spawning at 3, which actually will be here. And it appears we have found a loot monster, and as it implies, we take this thing down, we have potential for good loot. Just like that, the monsters have been spawned, their cards have been sent, and we're now ready for the player phase. Now, based on how the game state has changed with the monsters, I want to make sure that we got this root here sitting on the right character so I can make use of it if I need to get back to the tree for some reason, based on whatever's going to happen with that monster up there in the top left. So what we're going to do is trade the root from here over to here, which gives it to the character that has the most elemental dice and the most for attacking, especially with my sword over here, to head back to the tree sooner rather than later. Maybe have my other one kind of head towards this creature, the loot monster. Now the kicker with this is with 3 actions, I'd be able to go 1, 2, and 3, but then I'd be beside this thing. When it moves, it would attack me. So I really don't want that to happen, and I don't want to be in a spot where it's going to. Now this is going to move 2, and it can move through thickets. So it can go 1, and it can actually go right into the thicket space. So that's not something I want to have happen. Now I could move my character into there, and that would make a lot more sense, because then I could attack it from a thicket, which would actually be beneficial. So let's go ahead and actually have me move 1, 2, and 3, and I can pick up these 2 berries along the way before diving into the thicket. I changed my mind. Instead of actually going here, 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 and then here, I'm going to go through these 2 and then into this one and over here, so I can actually gain one of those spell cards. This looks like a great spell. I'm going to have to look at the icon to be sure I've got this right. All right, so we got the berry, we got the spell card, and we're in the thicket, safe and sound, 3 actions spent. I'm going to have Durin go ahead with the first action, heading into this space to pick up one of the item chest cards. That's hilarious. We found ourselves a magic root after stealing the one from the other guardian. Well, I'm going to go ahead and spend that root right now in order to teleport right to the tree. Instead of the tree, which I was tempted to do, I'm going to instead go right to the nearest nexus point, which is close to the enemy, right here. Now, I did explain earlier on how the magic root works in terms of using it, but based on the icon in the rulebook for the prototype rules, it states that you can use the root at any time to jump to a nexus point or to the Eldertree, so that is exactly how I'm playing it going forward. There might be a contradiction there in the rulebook that needs to be clarified, but this appears to be correct, as the nexus points and the Eldertree are all connected, and the root is what gets you there. Now, we're going to go ahead from here with 2 actions. I'm going to get myself into a space next to this thing, and then do an attack, which is awesome. Now, it's also worth noting just to the north of me is the sorceress, which is awesome. So at some point I could even go in there, but I don't want to do it yet because I want to be able to move over and maybe attack this thing right away. Could be scary because if I don't kill it, it's going to counterattack me, and then when it moves, it's going to move past me and hit me again. So I have a risk here of a double attack. Or instead, I can use my 2 action points to actually head through here. I can't interact with this again, but I can head into the thicket here. And when this thing is moving, it has to be moving closer to the Eldertree. So I could have it come along this path and go to this location on its way, which is still heading on the shortest path towards the tree. And then I'd be able to attack it with a +1 from the thicket, and also not take any of the counterattacks. So that does it for the player phase. And now at this point, the monster is going to activate and move too. And actually that plan's not going to work out in the end because it is a shorter route to still go straight through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get adjacent, or going the way I want it to go, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it is definitely going to go like this straight through. That's okay though. I played it the way I played it. We can still run up behind it and hit it. I'd rather actually be coming at it from behind than have to worry about it crossing my path and hitting me as it moves again in the future. That's going to wrap up round number 8. We're going on to round 9. And we'll jump into the player phase where I'm hoping to attack both of these monsters inside this round. Now, something I just noticed in terms of close combat attacks, which I know I've only done with this character has taken down 3 different enemies so far, and so I should at least be 3 up on each of these tracks, so I should be at the max here and be 1 away on this one. Now I'm going to choose to spend an AP in order to get adjacent to this thing. Use a second one in order to attack it from range. So I'll be using this whirl slash here. Again, when I'm doing the close combat is when I uptick these, but my elemental die is already ready. Now I'm trying to hold that elemental die back for a moment when I really need it. Now this enemy has the 2 standard dice as of right now. It will continue to get more dice as the game evolves and goes on. And as of the weakest element, it's fire. Strongest element is going to be ice. Now I'm thinking ahead about my close combat, but really it's a range that's going on right now. So spending my second action point to do a ranged attack, I'm going to go ahead and spend a mana in order to do that attack, and it's going to be a -1 off the health of this thing, dropping it from 4 to a 3. Now inside the close combat, we're going to use another action point, my final one, to make that happen. We're going to be bringing the sword in for 2 white dice. We're going to have the 1 passive off of here. We're going to use electricity against this thing. It's going to be going up against its water, which is a 2. Let's go ahead and roll and see what we get off the dice. There's 2 right there. That's incredible. So 1, 2, we got 4 is 6, and then 1 is 7 right here. Let's see how the enemy responds to us, and it's going to be a hit, which does not help because it needs to be defense, and this is going to trigger the transparent ability here along the bottom, and it's going to be focused on the defensive side of the equation. It says a minus, actually, so it's going to reduce one of my hits from 7 down to 6, and it's going to provide a health to this enemy, jumping it up to 4, but of course I have more than enough damage still to get through and kill this thing off. Now, in terms of the math, we got 7 minus the 1, which comes off of this icon here from the ability. So 6 is coming at it, but it has 2 defense thanks to the element we're attacking. So 4 gets through, and that is enough to take it out. I gotta tell you, that sword has come in real handy during this playthrough. We're gonna go ahead and roll here for loot, and we got ourselves a chest as well as a gem. So let's go ahead and find out what we get from the top of the deck here. It is going to be another gem, so we're literally going into the bag to pull twice separately. I'm super happy that that worked out because I don't take any kind of counterattack, so this enemy is killed off. Its strength was in ice, so that's going to benefit me on the board. We'll put things up on the monster collection board in a second, but let's draw for those gems that we got off the loot. The first one is going to be a red, and the second one coming out of the bag is going to be a blue. At this point, I am more than excited to get to the sorceress in the future. So we now add this monster to our collection. Now, as Gara goes ahead with her 3 actions, there's something that's worth knowing around the loot monster because it acts and behaves differently than other monsters. Now, a loot monster also moves toward the Eldertree just like the other monsters. That's the only thing that's similar, but once it gets to the tree, instead of doing 1 point of damage to the tree every single time it's adjacent to it, and unlike the boss is doing 2, it is going to literally disappear. So in other words, you're going to miss out on the chance to get the loot. So you want to kill this thing before it gets away. Essentially, its only focus is trying to get away. Now, you have to initiate a battle with it in order to fight it, and when you do, it's elementally neutral. So in other words, there's no element bonus into the equation on your side or its side whatsoever. It's strictly just equipment, dice, and abilities counting in battle. That's it. Once health has been depleted, roll a d4 and then determine what you gain. So let's go on a little adventure here. We'll spend 2 actions to go 1, 2, which is going to take us to 2 interaction points that I can take, some berries, as well as this symbol right here. In the end, I'm going to decide not to interact with this location. I'm still moving here, so that's a 2 AP to get here. Now the third one will be to attack this thing in close combat. It's a close combat attack, so both tracks here are going to go up by 1. This one can, it's already at the top. This one here will go to the top. Now going into this roll, I got an attack die, 1 single one because I have no weapons here. The enemy gets a standard dice in this equation, so it's going to be 1 black die for defense and 1 for the ability here. And that's basically it. Now I can also use my abilities up here, so I'm going to spend a mana, but I'll first roll just to see how things go. And I have this spell card that appears to be a reroll of a sword or attack die. So I'm going to say that that's what it is because other iconography within the game seems to follow that vein. This one is, I don't need to do it at all. So that's going to be 1 hit right there. Now let's try to add to this. So let's go ahead and spend the mana in order to boost things up. So we'll drop this down by 1. That's going to let me gain another one. So now I've got 2. And this will take 1 shield away from this enemy. So here's hoping that this thing rolls a shield and I can just eliminate it. It doesn't. It doesn't even trigger its ability. So no shields. It gets nothing. So 2 damage gets through. That was honestly the best case scenario that I could have hoped for. That's the maximum amount of damage that could have gone through with my very, very weak individual not being able to use elemental strength. And I might get lucky and be able to peck away at this thing as it tries to run towards the tree. Now, it's worth noting I could have absolutely used my elemental die as part of my roll, but I definitely don't want to spend an elemental die in this situation and have that die be burnt on such a low-end monster. It's really just about gaining loot. It's not a monster that's going to attack me, so I don't need to kill it right away. So it is now the monster's phase, and the monster's going to move 2 towards the Eldertree. So we'll take a look at the hexes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the closest, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So either way, it's going to basically head up like this. Now, as this round ends, one thing to remember is I need to get this character to a rainbow by the end of the next round. And we're now moving into round number 10. At the end of this round, a number of things will happen as we transition to the next Dark Moon cycle. Now, as much as I really want to go explore and do a number of other things, I need to make sure that I can get a marker in one of the rainbow positions. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to get these characters close enough together to trade. So what I'm going to do is spend all 3 actions from this character to go 1 here. And there is an ice here. I could go after a companion if I actually had 4 in that, but I don't. So we'll continue on. I'll go to this location and I'll take the mushroom. I have added that into my inventory down here. And finally, most exciting, because this actually works out perfectly, we're going to move down here to the sorceress. And when we move into this location, I can actually interact with the sorceress and enhance my character. So as you can see, this is the sorceress hut right here, and we are definitely inside of it and interacting with it. We don't place a marker, though, on this location, very much like a smithy. Now, while here there are 2 very cool things you can do for your character. The first is you can take any 4 of the gems and you can give them to the sorceress, and she will give you a elemental fusion card. And that fusion card is triggered when you want, so long as your track is at the very top. And we are just 1 away, so only 1 more close combat will push that to the very top, and then we can actually make use of whatever it is. So I want to do it, but before we do, we want to talk about ability cards we can gain from the sorceress. While we're at the Sorceress, we're able to gain ability cards, and we can gain them simply by spending the matching gem type, but we have to ensure if we are going ahead and paying for it that we're paying with the gem that associates with the correct color, and also we want to be able to slot it into a slot that is allowed per the equipment we have crafted. So for example, over here with our weapon, we have 2 red gems, which means in the weapon slots, we can place abilities that cost red gems. Whereas with the armor slots that we have opened up over here, we could use orange or blue. So if we're going to give 4 generic gems over to the Sorceress to try and get a fusion card, we want to keep some of the other ones that will align with being able to slot in some new ability cards as well. So in the end, I think I'll actually give 1 of each, keeping 2 red and 1 blue in order to get that elemental fusion card. Let's find out what it is. The elemental fusion card is called Defense Reduction. Roll 2 times elemental dice. The highest value reduces the shields or defense of the monster. It's only usable in battle. Well, you certainly won't hear me complaining about that, and we've got 3 more gems left to spend if we wish. For my hand slot, I'm going to spend 1 red gem to pick up the top card, which is Precise Shot. It's a ranged one, which is awesome. From 2 hexes away, will hit for 1 damage. It's also able to be chained with another ability thanks to the gear icon. So for example, if I use the Precise Shot first, it's a ranged attack. If I use it, I'm hitting something 2 away for a health, and then I can chain it with something else. I could chain it with a Whirl Slash, for example, hitting other enemies that are surrounding me. Now I'm not going to spend every single gem I have. I'll keep 1 red one, but I'll spend the blue one in order to get something in my armor slot, and this is called Dragon Armor. Give me a +2 defense, which sounds like a very useful card to have. So as you can see, the Sorceress is very beneficial. Now that is going to be all the actions for that Guardian. We're heading over to the next one, who's going to move and head to this gem location to interact with it. And we will head inside the bag and hope to get something decent out of it. Let's see what it has in store for us. We'll shake it up real good. And we got ourselves, it looks like a blue gem. That's not bad at all. We'll then head to the legendary chest location, which unfortunately we only have 1 key. We need 3 to open up one of those, but now we're adjacent to our friend and we've spent 2 actions. A trade action is free. So we're going to trade one of those roots back, taking the one I originally had in the first place. That was a free action. We still have 1 action left. We're going to use another free action in order to use that root right now, and that's going to send us to the Nexus over here. Then we'll spend 1 more action to get us into the space with the rainbow, and that's going to replenish our health and our mana. So we'll make sure both of those are jumped up to 8, so the mana is the only one going up. Now onto the monsters phase. The loot monster is going to make a break for the Eldertree. With only 2 health left on it, I'm really hoping we can take it out and gain that loot in the future. That, my friends, is the end of game round number 10, and as you can see, we're moving on to a new Dark Moon cycle. When this occurs, 5 major steps happen. The first is that every single player marker is removed from the Elder Forest and placed back with their guardians. Now back at the top where the game round board is, we're going to reset the sand timer back to the 1 position. Below the game round track, there is a Dark Moon cycle track, which we're going to have the marker there move to the next position. As the marker moves to the next position, 3 things to take notice of. First off, the boss spawn token is gone, as we're going to be spawning a boss in just a moment. So yes, you're going to see a boss spawn into the game world. And then after that, you'll notice that we move from the green area to the yellow area, which means that all of the bosses and monsters are going to become tougher in the game. And also the dice they roll is going to go up from 1 black die to 2 black dice. Now this is where things get interesting because we have to roll a d4 to determine which portal the boss is going to be coming out of. We have a Guardian over here at gate 3 and we have a Guardian over here at gate 4. Will it spawn anywhere near those 2 or will it be somewhere else on the board? We're about to find out. It's going to be 4, which is going to be down here in the bottom right. Now in the prototype there are 6 different bosses that we could potentially run into. I'm going to go ahead and roll a d6 to determine which boss it's going to be. They're going to be in this order running from 1 to 6. So I'll roll the die and see what we got. It is a 5. And that's going to be this boss right here. As you can see, the elemental track over here, it's going to be strong in the earth department. You're also going to see now that we're in yellow, it's a +2 to whatever is shown here. So it's actually a +7 here, which is absolutely terrifying. +2 on all the other ones as well. Now down here, in terms of its health, it's coming in at 12. Here are the 2 creatures in the game world right now. One of them very aggressive to the Eldertree, the other one just trying to escape to the Eldertree. And here's a standee for the boss. The boss standees are larger, and they also come in with their own set of dice, different from the monsters, so that's going to make them even more interesting. Every boss comes into the game with 3 special one-time use abilities. They're going to draw 3 cards specific to the bosses, and they're going to reside underneath of the boss card. For me, I'm going to place them off to the side. Let's check out these boss ability cards for the boss in play. Spreading Chaos. You'll see the grid pattern of the attack. It says attacks all guardians in range and reduces their health by 2. Not good. Next one is Show Wave. This one attacks every guardian before, during, and after his turn within 2 hexes and causes 2 health hits each. That's pretty terrible. And Power Boost is going to give a boost of 2 sword icons. Be sure to remember these are one-time use abilities, and when the boss uses them, they're discarded. Now, something I just caught retroactively is that we took down this monster and Gara got the credit for the kill up there on the Hunter collection board, so we are getting 2 gems of our choice. I'm picking 2 red gems as I didn't have any in Gara's inventory. We definitely want to get to a sorceress going into the next round or the next Dark Moon cycle. So in summary, the 5 things are to remove all the player markers from the locations in the forest, then you place that hourglass marker back on round 1, you place the Dark Moon cycle marker onto the next space on its track. If it happens to have a boss spawn, you'll spawn the boss. And then last but not least, as I mentioned already, you want to watch out for monsters and bosses. They're now leveled up from green to yellow, making them tougher and with more dice overall. And that, my friends, wraps up part number 1 of Vanea Guardians of the Eldertree, coming from Forgotten Tales, landing on GameFound in the very near future. The link to the campaign page can be found in the pinned comment and video description. I'm excited to dive into another 10 game rounds inside of one more Dark Moon cycle with you to see whether we can take down a boss. We can also explore more of the Elder Forest and try to keep this tree from being attacked. So far, so good. We'll see how it goes in the next 10 game rounds. Thanks again for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.